Word on this.
Hello, welcome to the Big Black Tent. We got lots of black and white American things to talk about today. I got my name wrong. Well, Rebecca Naima Freedom.
And I am Natalie Arsenault. I am her sidekick and all of that.
Excuse my mind because I am cramping, and so that executive part may be breaking down right now. The executive function is
it happens. Blood flow has to go to other places and can't be in all the places at all the same time. And my lighting is really jacked up today. I don't know why that is, but y'all just gonna have to deal with me being partially. I don't know what to tell you. It's the same lighting. I don't know what's going on. I do have the thing positioned in a different place, but yeah.
It is. It's like you're white and off-white, ecru and eggshell all at the
No,
same time.
all at the same time. And then I have like a whole angelic, holy light coming from this. I got a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Maybe that's your aura. Maybe that should just.
It could be. Let's call it that for the sake of this episode. So that I don't have to try to figure it out and I can stay put on this couch. Okay, great.
Oh, okay. There was a lot going on in my life this week. There was a lot going on in the world this week.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that stood out to me, and I don't have her information to quote her, but it was a woman. I love the way she said on social media that when there's a school shooting, that's usually done 9 times out of 10, a white male American.
Yep.
That they don't have to go through campaigns to berate Black mothers on what to do with their children.
Yes.
Right. And until she talked about that, I didn't even consciously connect those two things.
Yeah. But you know what? That is to me, that's the essence of white America. That's why I like when people like the whole crime documentaries and 2020 and all of those that have like the small town murder and whatever. And I'm like, so y'all just trying to humanize some murderers. That's what y'all trying to do. You're basically taking white folks who have done crimes that are heinous, and you are attempting to humanize and tell the story so that, because don't nobody do that for Jamal. Jamal go to jail, he done murdered somebody, and ain't nobody doing a 2020 documentary on Jamal and his family and his wife and his girlfriend and how the situation transpired. None of that happens.
You're right. You're right about that. I remember Paul Mooney doing a skit talking about if we go to jail with multiple personalities, they're gonna be like, nigga, you need to pick one because one of them going to jail. We do not get the humanization, the medicalization,
no, right? None of it. So yeah, I mean, the lady that you sent over, and I have my Instagram actually pulled up, so I can probably see her name.
Okay. I love that because she was right. I was like, we went through the Just Say No campaigns. We went through the I Am Somebody campaigns. We went through, there were so many things that were forced into public school. She said unlicensed speakers. Like she was like, right, inexperienced rants, random people going viral. Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently her name is Sunny DeJones.
Okay.
Sunny Day Jones. So yeah, so I had a bunch of feelings about this because one, part of me agrees, right? Part of me agrees that, when Timmy shoots up a school, we find lots of reasons for why Timmy shot up the school, right? He was bullied, or his medication wasn't regulated properly, or whatever the case may be. And no one talks about the parenting of Timmy. Timmy is also not known as a thug and all the other things, right? So we've certainly talked through all of that. Whereas when Jamal get in one fight, your whole family lineage come into question and why they ain't raising you right, and you some animals and all the other things. So definitely agree with that. Part of me though also had some dissonance in her message.
Okay.
Because I was like, it's true. White America is rarely ever under the microscope in the ways that Black America is under the microscope. And they certainly, and we might have talked about this on the last episode too, to some degree or another, because we were talking about, maybe it wasn't you, I don't know, I'll be having these conversations all over the place. But I was saying that, you know, like for Black television, we seem to just have ratchet since, you know, since we had the Cosbys and Hillman and maybe Family Matters and whatever, we just had ratchet ever since. And we don't get the spectrum, right? Because I'm definitely not saying Black people don't have no ratchetness. We certainly have ratchetness, but we don't get the spectrum of, yes, there's ratchet examples of all the things on TV, to there's wholesome, you know, family oriented like stuff on TV. And so like certainly white people have their meth heads and trailer park people who, you know, got 27 babies by 52 daddies because we ain't figured out the DNA and all the other things, right? And then they have the people who have like homes that are, you know, by definition, traditional and wholesome and all the things. The one thing though that I will say is that, and I think I was talking to my husband about this, I was like, there are probably neighborhoods that, so I'm backing up. So there are neighborhoods that are predominantly white. We know this because that's pretty much all of America. So there are different types of neighborhoods, right? If you're in Houston, you know, you got the River Oaks and you have the Highland Village and you have the West Universities and all those places. And then you also have the predominantly white trailer park situations where, you know, backwoods, all the things. I asked my husband, I was like, and I asked this to people who are listening to this podcast, where are the West U, River Oaks, Highland Village for Black America? Where is there a concentration of us that is not in large, again, we talking about across America. Where are there, aside from Black Wall Street, I don't want dead examples that people went and bombed and blew up. But today,
don't be bringing them no dead
history. Dead Black people. Today, in 2024, where is there a neighborhood or neighborhoods that is predominantly Black? So we're talking about more than 51% of the population in that neighborhood is Black American. First of all, let me be clear, Black American. I don't want to know about no Trinidadian neighborhood. I don't want to know about no Jamaican neighborhood.
I'm about to get in trouble.
I'm about to get in real trouble. I want to know about Black Americans.
Okay.
I don't want to hear about a Nigerian neighborhood. None of that. I want to know about Black American neighborhoods.
Making my mind work. I'm like, okay, wait a minute.
Mind work. Black American neighborhoods that are not hood.
That are not hood. Okay, so I have some questions. Number one, back in the day.
Because we used to have McGregor, like in Houston.
Well, yeah.
McGregor area. Okay, but that's not ours.
Yes. Okay, so based on that, right? Because in the 90s, yeah, right. In the 90s, before gentrification again, right?
Okay, pause. Okay, so this is my comment on gentrification.
Okay.
Because I told my husband this too. I was like, look, I am not in my question. I don't want anybody to walk away from my question saying that there are not mitigating circumstances to the hoods, right? Like, yes, I know about redlining. I know about gentrification. I know about all those things, right? The abstraction of manufacturing jobs, like certainly know about all those things.
Okay.
That being said, my parents both grew up poor. by all accounts, broke. And yet, my grandparents, specifically on my mother's side, my grandmother would never let you leave the house looking raggedy. Like, you are going to, even if you are wearing your sister's hand-me-downs, they are going to be ironed. You're going to look presentable. The house is going to be clean. The yard is going to be maintained. We not putting cars on cinder blocks. We not like, there were, regardless of the socioeconomic place, there was still pride in the home, the appearance of the home, how you sent your kids out of the home, all of those things. So, and again, I'm not denying the redlining and all that, but I don't know what that got to do with your pride in your place. Okay,
so there's
now let's move on.
Okay, so there's two chapters, right? There's a chapter of where is the Blacks from Wall Street today,
Mm-hmm.
and then there is the mentality that has something to do with the person rather than the class of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So which one do you want to discuss first?
No matter, go with whatever moves your soul. Whatever moves your soul. Let me hear it.
Because these are both important. Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack. So in the 90s at least, well, in the early 2000s, Baldwin Hills was still that neighborhood in California, in Los Angeles.
True.
Right? I don't know if it's still that way. And you recently went to the Hamptons, so is there something like that in the Hamptons?
There is a Black side of like Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
Right. So Martha's Vineyard does have like an affluent Black area. Right.
Okay.
That was mainly because they, you know, we couldn't go where we wanted to go, and there's a whole story behind that. But
right.
Yes. So those two neighborhoods.
Well, there is. Okay, so let's go. Well, we understand if there is not more than that, we understand, right? Why? Right? We understand.
No, I don't understand why.
That's you don't understand why?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So according to some dated 1990s sociology of education class. Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So according to I'll take Third Ward as an example. Yes. So what I was taught is before they became, oh Lord, correct me on this, but before At Large started, right? Mm-hmm. Before At Large, that was a predominantly Jewish area. When they left, the Black people moved in, right? The doctors, the lawyers, but you still had, you know, because we were all in one place, you still had some good in there. Right? But it was maintained. So they said there, before integration, that the community controlled its own politics, right? Mm-hmm. After integration, one way to maintain control and power was to make positions at large,
right?
Which, if I'm saying that right, which meant that you didn't have to live there to represent there,
right?
Right, and so people started campaigning with more money to mm-hmm. take away from maybe Candy Lady Betty, who was running for whatever in the neighborhood that everybody knew and respected.
Right.
So they also talked about, this was very fascinating, probably maybe chapter 3, we'll throw it in here. In the early 1900s, up to 1920, before the socialization of birth certificates and Social Security cards and things, Black women, Black American women, were the matriarchy of most communities I didn't know, because they were the midwives. And so they had the power to 24 hours a day go across state lines, neighborhoods, because they were giving birth to everybody's baby. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when they took that right away from them over money and power and all the other things, right? Mm-hmm. Then she no longer had that status in her own community and other communities.
But what does that have to do with your community mm-hmm. going downhill?
Okay. Well, when they started giving at-large resources, when people who were not from your community mm-hmm. started getting funded, then they could decide where the funds go. So,
but what does that have to do? Mm-hmm. What does that have to do with your house.
Oh, you individual house. Okay.
Your
Now that's chapter
home,
2.
right?
We'll move to
Your
chapter 2.
home.
Okay.
Your
Because I can say there's two things. Like where you live, I'm here in Memorial. So if we're just talking about the streets and how the streets are maintained, because we see this in every hood, trash on the streets. I notice when it comes to the hood, sidewalks end. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but if you go walking, the sidewalks in the middle of the whatever, sidewalks in there. You don't find that in the planning of these neighborhoods, right?
like the neighborhood I live in don't have sidewalks at all.
Okay, well, they got other nice things. Like you can afford to go to your gym. Okay, stop it. You can afford that anyway. Stop playing with me. You can buy your own damn sidewalk. That's what they said. Buy your own damn sidewalk. If y'all had sidewalks, because y'all didn't want a damn sidewalk.
That's right. Well, my side of the neighborhood said no. Martin doesn't like that. I'll tell you that right now. He like, because I don't want to walk in the street with the dog. I'm like,
right, but if y'all
not
wanted
having a sidewalk,
it would be there. Somebody said no.
Somebody said no. That's correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, we don't want sidewalks here. But the other side of the neighborhood, the west side of the neighborhood got sidewalks. Okay, so yes, keep going.
Okay, so I'm saying let's start like on city planning in a sense. So I noticed in the Black neighborhoods, I would say, why is there trash why is there's no upkeep, whatever that priority, whoever is in charge of that, whoever is supposed to vote that, whoever's supposed to attend that meeting. I noticed when it comes to our neighborhoods, that upkeep isn't there, just visually, right? Whoever's supposed to do something to the medians, right? That upkeep isn't there. So the second part to that, what does that have to do with your house? You are correct, but there's several things going on.
Okay.
In our neighborhoods, as we talked about, there is a lot of oppression and depression and health issues. So you have poverty of class, but you have poverty of mentality. Okay. And most of our women are single women. Okay. Most of our women are not in a community. Most of our women in our communities do what I'm doing. You running and you hustling, trying to maintain all of this stuff. Okay. So I can say just from my side of it, if it's just you maintaining all this, it gets a bit tough. Now, with that said, I do know of some women who are of a certain type A personality, right? Who I don't care if Junior is going to jail, this house is going to be clean, right? I'm just saying people have different priorities, right?
You might be going to jail. We'll figure that out. But what we need to have is a clean house.
Clean house.
Good godliness.
So I think that's because she had a different situation because my grandma, and I know somebody else was like that. Like she struggled with life, right? She made it beat them kids because that was the thing to do. They got other serious traumas going on, but they're going to clean that house. You're going to eat on that floor, right? What my mom did with that was something completely opposite with that trauma, right? There was going to be piles of shit everywhere. And at the same time, my mom, like a lot of our moms in integration, decided to go to school and work, right? So she wasn't home, daddy wasn't home. We didn't live by any cousins, uncles. We were a nuclear family traditionally, right? So it was up to us kids to maintain the house, right? And that's not what we did with our trauma. For some reason, it was like, beat me if you want to. The last thing I'm gonna do is, right? It was a trauma response. So I'm saying I think a lot of this, of what we experience in our communities, are trauma responses that have not been addressed, and it comes out in very different ways. Hence, the community that I've been researching, girl, with ChatGPT. I'm so excited about communal living. Communal living. This would solve it because you need healthy community, but you need healthy community. It is impossible to do all of this stuff and have it balanced on your own. You can do it, but something is going to be severely lacking, which is usually our health.
Yeah, I mean but that statement that you just gave applies to everyone, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like, and I've had this conversation with friends of mine who are trying to climb the corporate ladder, have kids, got a husband, on boards, all the stuff. And I'm like, look, you can do it all, just not at the same time. That's everybody, period.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether you are broke, busted, and at the bottom of wherever, or you are at the top of the top. Bottom line is there are only so many hours in a day.
Yes. There you go.
You have to prioritize what's important to you. And for every hour that you invest in work is an hour that you're not investing in your kid, you're not investing in your husband, you're not investing in friendship, you're not investing in self-care, you're not right. So, or for every hour you dedicate to your kid, you're not giving to your husband, you're not like, that's just it. That's the
That was a whole sermon and a shout cue. Seriously. That was, I heard, thank you.
I mean, it's what it is. But my thing is, that is everybody. That's everybody and everything. So again, and I'm not saying we don't have trauma. I'm not saying we don't have unhealed trauma. Certainly not saying that at all. I'm just trying to figure out why, okay, so I will never forget the personal trauma that I endured going to.
What you about to talk? I'm always like, what is she about to say? I'm like,
let me tell you. We went to visit one of my husband's family members. And I'm just going to say this. So the apartment complex that we went to, first of all, I was traumatized just arriving at the complex. Never mind whoever living there on a daily basis. But literally, I kid you not, and apparently this is like one of the worst apartment complexes in Houston. Like, it's known for, the apartment complex used to have a police substation in the complex.
I'm like Oaks or Charleston or something similar.
So, but the police substation then closed down. They like, never mind, y'all can have it. It had barbed wire, but the barbed wire on the fence was facing inward.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, I was perplexed because I was like, is that's barbed wire on the fence? Is that right?
So was this a Section 8?
I'm absolutely sure. I'm absolutely positive, right? But my thing is, even in all of that, even because this is the thing, my grandmother on my mother's side had 17 children. Is one of 17. Same granddaddy. And I was like, Mama, I don't really understand what you was doing. I feel like you should have told Papa to leave you alone at some point.
Not back then, baby girl.
She was just like, her philosophy was if the Lord didn't want her to have them, she wouldn't have them. That was her philosophy. And
that's what they believe.
That's
what the Mormons believe today.
If that's not a rule to keep your leg closed, I don't know what this would be like. And because you can't touch it. Don't touch it. Okay. But the thing that she always said, and this is the part I don't understand. When did this, I'm gonna call it a theology. When did this theology change? And that is, my grandmother always said that I don't care what you do. I don't care if you are a janitor and you clean toilets. You need to be the best janitor that you can be.
I'm gonna tell you when that changed. And I'm going to be adamant and passionate.
She also said it ain't got nothing to do with nobody else.
This is what let me revisit our old saints, okay? Because these saints, when was she born? Right,
1914?
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking to these old saints now.
Okay, let's talk to the old saints.
I'm talking to these non-GMO, right?
Oh, so we thinking we got a chemical situation happening.
I'm stating the fact. I'm stating the facts that these what's that movie that you told me? Magical Negroes. These magical Negroes' grandparents were slaves, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So my grandmother's mother, so my great grandmother, at the tail end of slavery,
Okay.
Her
So your
mother.
grandmother's mother.
Yeah, because slavery just ended in the late 1800s.
Okay. Well, your grandmother's mother was a child for
So my
slavery.
great great grandmother was
Okay.
enslaved.
Okay. Okay. So number one, they knew who the enemy was. All
That's
right.
true. They did
They
know.
were clear on what freedom really was. And she was actually more free in 1914 than we are today. Number one.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
Number two, they had to have community, right?
That
They
is true.
had to have community. So she had a black butcher and a black baker, right? Because they were forced to.
Yeah, they were forced to because of segregation.
So you had a sense of interdependence and independence. So, well,
So you're saying that pride is driven out of community.
yes,
Nothing else.
yes, yes. Community, because see, she remembers when. Her mama remembers when. Right? When you couldn't own nothing, when you couldn't own yourself.
You cannot own yourself. That is correct.
So it's not a case. She never took her self-esteem for 8 hours a day to a public school, disintegrated.
I mean, true. They did take it out to the cotton field, though, beaten, battered, and tattered.
And it was clear that's not what we want to be, right?
Right.
So I'm saying that for some of us, I'm saying these are not excuses. I'm just saying I think these are interesting data points because I was not raised in a Black community in any way, shape, or
Neither
form.
was I. Yeah, no, neither was I.
So if my parents wasn't giving it to me, I had to create it, watch it on TV, something, right? If you're not directly receiving it, then you trying to piecemeal it from the Jeffersons, from the Bible, from Oprah, from.
You don't feel like your soul and spirit, whichever one you want to go with, soul or spirit or both or all of them, is a guide?
Yes. However, if you were in a situation where you have to survive, and I'm saying trauma response. Some kids could have run away, some kids did, but I'm saying if your soul and spirit sees, but your caretakers don't, then after so many consequences and realities, one may choose to survive and say, for my safety, I just need to pretend that I see what they see. Right? Your environment really shapes us. It really does. And if my parents didn't have healthy self-talk, if my parents were insecure, if my parents suffered from depression or my environment did, then no matter how strong you are, that still affects you. It still
definitely. Don't get me wrong. I certainly agree it affects you. I'm just trying to figure out the degree to which, because clearly, based on this conversation, this means that I have been surrounded in my entire life of living, current state included, by highly exceptional people. That's what you're telling me then, which I do not believe that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe that people, don't get me wrong. I think the people around me are great. But
just in case they're watching.
Well, my daddy did. So I guess he could be watching. And Martin will probably watch at some point in time, and my mama too. But because the stories that let me tell you, I think I've shared the story of my dad and his upbringing. I'm pretty sure I said that at least on one podcast or another. So somebody go back and watch all the podcasts.
Oh yeah, because you're saying they chose different.
Correct. They chose that. My husband is a living testament. God.
But what if they didn't, Natalie? What if they didn't choose different?
But that's what I'm saying. My husband, even when he was in the streets as a kid, and I mean in them streets as a kid, on the north. He was on the north side. I feel like that's part of the problem, but okay.
She done offended north side.
The whole north side of you. Sorry, y'all look different up there. Okay. But when he was in them streets, even he said it didn't sit with him. It just didn't. He was doing it, but it was like he was just kind of walking.
That's what people talk about. Right? Praying grandmothers, praying grandfathers.
Like it never felt like it was him. It always felt like he was wearing something else that wasn't him. Right. So and my dad, I remember my dad telling me when he was like 8 or 9, being in Southern Louisiana, a lot of Blacks were Catholics, were raised Catholics. And he said he'll never forget the time that he went to a Catholic mass with his cousins, and the priest was doing, the communion, and you're supposed to go in front of the priest and kind of bow and get them to, and he was like, so he said something in his spirit told him, this is 8 or 9 years old, he was like, I'm not bowing before any man.
That
And
sounds like where you got that from. Now it makes sense. Okay, so look,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's your spirit.
It be your line. That may be your patrilineal, matrilineal. That is the spirit from which you guys are drawn from. God talks to us about generational blessings and generational curses. And some people out here are breaking these lines for the first time. And it sounds like somebody broke something from you way back then.
Maybe, I don't know, because I think every tub has to stand on its own feet, right? Well, like everybody has to take ownership. And I was talking to my husband about this because yesterday I wanted pancakes, so we went to IHOP, and I saw this girl. She worked at IHOP. She was getting out the car. Somebody was dropping her off, and they were driving a Honda Accord, and I mean, the Honda Accord looked raggedy. I was like, I can't believe it's actually still running. Like, the entire front was missing, the whole nine. And I turned to my husband and I was like, it's fascinating to me because the average person probably just wants to live. And they just want to live their life, mind their business, live their life, do something sort of meaningful. And I was like, I wonder what what her story is, right? Is she in school and she just working at IHOP to get some money to pay for school? Is this like a career choice for forever and that's what she's gonna be and she's just gonna bounce around for whatever, right? And it just made me think, I'm like, everybody, and I get all the external forces and all the things, I get it. But at the end of time, at the end of the day, there's only one person who owns the accountability for your life, and that is you.
But I think that you're assuming, I think this is why I love science. You're assuming that we all show up with the same neural pathways, the same soul journey. But let's just start with the brain, okay? Yeah. Let's start with the brain. And let's start with pregnancy, what happens in pregnancy to a woman, right? And so I remember when I was teaching some of my behavior classes, right? Because I realized if we don't interrupt this in childhood, it continues. Okay. And if you're not a me, and I say this humbly, if you're not a me, then you just may not care, right? Because it becomes a bit much to bear. So I had this student who was exceptionally gifted. He was actually a twin. And I think about him sometimes like, where did he end up? And he knew that his mother was a crackhead, right? He was born when she was on crack. And his sister didn't have behaviors, but he had behaviors, right? For whatever reason, they couldn't figure out or whatever in technology, what was going on here. And he would just lose it. So, but he would often, and he struggled with, right? My mom left me with the grandparents. And then he sees his mom show up with new babies, right? So he was dealing with neglect and his own form of depression. And well, when I got pregnant, that sent him through the roof, right? Because I'm with him every day, like mommy. So when I got pregnant, and I actually did end up leaving that year, and he had to go in a more severe program because he was trying to attack, the belly. And I could empathize with him because I understood the trigger, right? But there was not a compassion system. It was like, right? Folks, was not a compassion system. You just gonna go to mini kid jail, and that's how we gonna do it.
That's how we do it, sadly.
Right. So I say that because since I've learned when you're pregnant, especially stressed, if you're stressed out, I had a Black midwife, God bless her soul, she passed away, and she was the best. So that's a whole nother chapter, Black maternal care.
Yeah.
But I remember she told me about my uterus. She would encapsulate the uterus afterward for you. And she said the best uterus and placenta, no, best placenta that she'd ever seen. And cord intactness was this woman. And she said, man, your husband must be a fabulous man just looking at the placenta. And I was like, how can you tell that? She said, because when a woman is stressed, that the umbilical cord starts to calcify. I said,
that's believable. It's like your pineal gland. Okay, keep going.
She said calcify. And she said, if it's calcified enough, it breaks off or it prevents oxygen, a certain amount of oxygen from getting to the baby's brain. And last pregnancy, I was always stressed the hell out. And I was like, oh my God. I was
like, oh Lord, please send oxygen.
What? She said, baby, for you, you did really good. For you did good. It was probably half. I don't know. But that was so deep to me. That was
and again, I am not denying the external factors. I am not. I'm not. I'm really not.
Half of a calcified brain, and you're like, that don't stop you.
You know, I mean, like, I am not denying the external factors, everything from the food. Like I said, this was our conversation the other day when we were talking about why I'm not attached to this world.
Oh, yeah.
Because everything in it is designed to kill you. So I get it. The air is bad. You can't escape it. The food, I don't care if you grow your own food, because my husband was like, we're going to grow. I was like, so what? You encapsulating this with air, with water, with soil? What are we doing? Because if we come in contact with anything else, it's a problem. No, I'm for real, it's a problem. I'm like, you got
it's less of a problem is if I had a GMO seed, it's less of a problem. You can't
get it though, because the ground is
you can't get eaten perfect, but you can make it less of a problem.
I don't know about that. I mean, I definitely eat organic just because I'm hedging my bets in this, but I don't know about that because the air and the rain, no matter how non-genetically modified, how great how whatever, like it's still getting the rain.
Well, the air and the rain ain't got nothing to do with being pre-diabetic and hypertension at this point.
I mean, it's all getting sucked up into the plant. So look, I get it. I get the external factors. I do.
Okay.
And I get that not everybody develops at the same pace and at the same rate and all the things.
Right.
All the things. And you still have that soul spirit being in you that is connected to the source of all things true. All things true. I know people be out here talking about there ain't no truth and what. No, it's a truth. There is a truth.
But I think this is the thing that I don't know, because it's so easy for you, like breathing. This is what I do want you to recognize. You have been in an incubator where you have been allowed to exercise that, and it has strengthened you since I guess birth.
I don't disagree with that either. So
I say that because it is so easy for you to speak and identify and know what you want and see results of that, right? And manifest that in a sense that you demand it without doubt.
I agree. But there are, again, so unless we are saying that the only people I've been surrounded by are absolute anomalies, because I mean, it's not my job to tell my husband's story, although he has told it previously on other shows that I've had, but I would have thought he would not have made it from just in general, period. Like there's nothing in his upbringing, in his that indicates that this dude should have had a chance. The same goes for my father. There's nothing the absolute worst.
Well, yeah, sounds like phenomenal Negroes.
I mean, my mother. I mean, yes, she had a 2-parent home, but I don't know how much parenting. Right, I got 17 children, so I don't know how much parenting we're actually doing.
Right.
And like there are other stressors, and she's one of the oldest girl, and what, like I'm like, there's a whole lot going on there. And yet my grandmother managed to raise every last single one of her kids, graduated high school, segregated or desegregated, every last single one of them. Mm-hmm. Most went to college, and most made something of themselves from a productive citizen standpoint, right? That's a case study in and of itself.
Yes, yes, it is.
There's 17 of them, and that's larger than a lot of studies that some of these people are putting out. So, like I fully understand all the external factors because I have borne witness to people who are really directly connected to me and close to me. While I didn't have those same issues, had other issues, but didn't have those same issues, I have seen and been a benefactor of the result of whatever happened with those individuals who went through whatever they went through. Mm-hmm.
I think what you're saying, okay, I'm sorry.
So that's why all for me, and this is the thing that, and may again, other people, clearly everybody is different. So I'm saying this categorically for me, similar to the Bible, I only need to see one example. I don't need 52,000 of them. I don't need whatever else. I mean, in theory, all I really need is to imagine it. But once I get one example that something exists, then to me, the rest just need to get in line. I don't understand. Because if it could work for this one, then it's the same thing as if you see a person walking on water, literally, there's no more question about whether you can walk on water. That's not a question anymore, because this regular human being who bleed blood and got the same.
For you, it's not a question, because there are other people doubting whether the earth is round.
That is correct. That is correct. But that doesn't undo the fact that you still have to be accountable for now knowing. On water.
Yeah, there's accountability I think the ultimate accountability is to consciousness and awareness in the tapes that people are going through. So let me back up a little bit, because I like what you said, because we don't know everybody's story.
Right.
We don't know even if they are doing something so far below, like let's say there's somebody who's got a horrible alcohol addiction. Mm-hmm. Okay. His father, because he's a his father may have had a horrible alcohol addiction, but was homeless. He's not homeless. He just has an alcohol
addiction. He's a functioning alcoholic, go to work and everything.
Yep. So I'm just saying, we don't know in ways that generations come up. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
And what they go through. I remember my mom saying, this was so interesting that you're bringing this up, because my mom still works through her trauma with her mother. Okay. Mm-hmm. My mom would say, I gave you a dad, right? You had a dad, right? And sometimes she apologizes because she's like, maybe not the dad.
Maybe not the dad you should have had.
Right. But I stayed married. All y'all have the same daddy. Like that was her thing.
That was her
thing. Yeah. Have the same daddy. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago that I understood why that was such an accomplishment. But I was like, you know what, Mom? Now that I know your story, you have normalized me understanding what that is. I don't have an issue. You know what I'm saying? I understand that was a hurdle that you crossed. Right. That is the norm for me, right? My mom going to college, only one in her family to go to college, right? And she expected us to berate, right, much of our generation in Black America. As a result, they told me to go. I went, right? It wasn't even an impossibility. Right. This is what we're doing. Didn't know what I was going to do there when I got out, but
we went.
Right? They made that. Right. They normalized that.
Right.
Right. So that wasn't a hurdle for me. Now, the matrilineal, patrilineal line suffers from depression. I was the first one who had to recognize it, treat it, and move through it. But it was that mental beast.
But
that was a struggle for us.
Everything you're describing, though, is just like the example you gave about the guy who may have had an alcoholic father that was not functioning. Now he's an alcoholic, but he's a functioning alcoholic, and he whatever, right?
Right.
That's a one step change.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have devolved. We as a people have gone backwards.
Yeah, I can see why. I can't.
That's what I'm saying. So if the idea is that how you show up, it could be minutes.
Well, what do you mean by devolving? What do you mean by devolving?
Well, I just told you about an apartment complex that had barbed wire facing in, and we started this conversation talking.
But we're not in slavery. That type of slavery, right? We're not owned by anybody.
I'm talking about your personal evolution, right?
Oh, so personal evolution.
Because you said, your mom, she right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Her big thing was, maybe I came from a broken home that did damage to me. I'm going to at least give my children a daddy in the house. Now, whether he is worth it or not, maybe not, but he in here. Right. And you can argue that that's right, wrong, or indifferent too, because people are like, it's sometimes worse for you to stay in a marriage that's raggedy than it would be for you to just be on your own. Right. So there's all of that. I'm just saying that, like,
personal evolution. Okay.
Personal evolution.
Well, yeah.
And community evolution, because we're talking about
community. Oh, well, we know that was under attack. Right.
Right. So I'm saying.
But yeah, I agree.
I
agree. Community. The community. I think it goes back, honestly.
Community.
Healthy community. Healthy community. Because when you're doing all of this, and like, I love what you're saying, it's like this across the board. I know we use white people as a monolith too, right? We use white people. But
raggedy, but yes. They just don't show you they stuff. But
they just don't show you they stuff. Yeah. But I get the fact that they transact with each other in a different way that is definitely not African and healthy or indigenous in my part. There's a way they objectify their women that I feel like historically, or at least Black American wise, we don't, because Black women have had to be the matriarch. So the things they tolerate as women, I'm like, what? We might be poor and raggedy sometimes, but you ain't gonna just
right.
even if we beaten her, I taking a hit and look. So yeah, I do agree with that. I believe that the campaign, right? When we integrated in the campaign to go across America and bomb and lynch and scare people out of their communities, if you destabilize a community, you destabilize a nation, you destabilize a home, you destabilize a people.
That's definitely true. That's right. Colonialism 101. Yes.
So yeah, if I'm struggling for basic survival needs, and if I have those needs, I still may not feel safe because I'm not in a community, which brings me to this. You sent that tape on that thing on Bill Gates.
Yep. And that yes. So that is a good segue. Okay. That is a good segue, because that's what that was one of the things that I was thinking. Rarely ever do people, and I don't know if he meant to tell this story or if he just got caught up in the whatever other thing, but rarely ever do the ultra wealthy tell you exactly how they got there. And Howard Schultz revealed a whole handful of cards in that example. And the bottom line is, he had a powerful friend that enabled him to get Starbucks. Now, don't get me wrong. He had to then put in whatever work he had to put in and all the things, and make sure they made the right decisions and all the things, and roughneck people in Ethiopia for their coffee and all the stuff that Starbucks do. Not give you organic milk and options, but that's for Starbucks. Okay, so he did all of that, right? He made them decisions. But the initial Kickstarter for that was not just because Howard Schultz was some brilliant man. And I think that's what oftentimes you think about the ultra rich, and you're just like, oh my gosh, they pulled
Worked for it.
themselves and they worked for it and pulled themselves by their boots. And little do you know that it was all the connectivity in the background working on their behalf. So just so people know the story. So Howard Schultz was being interviewed and was talking about how Starbucks came to be in his possession and became the CEO. And essentially what he said in this interview was that the company Starbucks existed. It wasn't obviously what it is today. This is back in the early days in the 80s. There was a person who wanted to sell it. He let the person know. He was like, hey, I want to buy this from you. Let me go talk to my investors. I'm gonna get them together. I'm gonna get this money. I'm gonna bring it to you. The person who owns Starbucks comes to him a couple of days later. He's like, look, I got an all cash offer on the table right now. And he's like, oh my God. So he finds out that there's this titan in Seattle that was one of his investors who decided to undercut him. And instead of funding Howard Schultz as an investor to buy Starbucks, he went around him to the owner of Starbucks at the time and said, I'll buy it from you, all cash offer. Howard Schultz is like, he's like, I can't believe he did this. Da, 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 da. He happens to be talking to one of his friends who was an attorney at this law firm. He's like, I can't believe he's telling the story. I can't believe one of my investors doesn't seem like this is right. Da, 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 da. His friend says, you know what? You should talk to Bill Gates Sr. So at the time, Bill Gates Sr., everybody knows Bill Gates now as the CEO, the Microsoft guy, but his father was this enormous,
I had no idea,
critical mass of an attorney in Washington State, in Seattle specifically, and had a firm and everything. So his friend is like, and his friend worked for this firm. So his friend is like, you know what, you need to come talk to Mr. Gates. And Howard Schultz, he was like, no, I don't think I should. I don't want to bother him. Da, 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 da. And his friend's like, no. I'm gonna make an appointment. You come see him. Friend makes the appointment. He goes talk to Bill Gates Sr. He tells him what happened. He said Bill Gates Sr. had 2 questions for me. One of the questions was, is everything you told me the truth? He said yes. And then he said the second question was, have you left anything out of this story? He said, no, I have not. He said he took him, Bill Gates Sr., took Howard Schultz by the hand, went down the street to this building, up the floor, and Howard Schultz is like, oh my God, I know where we are. We're at this other investor's place, right? So they go up to the floor. He said Bill Gates Sr. is apparently this really tall guy. He's like 6'7", 6'8". He goes inside. First of all, let's be clear. Bill Gates Sr. did not need to call and schedule no appointment. He just marched himself in there. I just like to be clear on that one. Okay, so he marched himself into the office. The guy is in the chair behind his desk. Again, this is supposed to be a titan of Seattle. So we got 2 titans of Seattle, which tells you that titans can be out-titaned. Okay, so goes into this guy's office. He's standing over him at 6'7", 6'8", and he says to the guy, you are going to stand down on this deal, and you are never going to do business in the coffee space or any competing space ever again. And the next day, Howard Schultz was able to go buy Starbucks.
man. When I saw that, I was like, number one, the rooms this guy was in.
Correct.
The rooms to be a part of some, I think, sports club, so that he knew the litigator who worked with Bill Gates, and right, the rooms that he was in. The hope part of being, oh, you can be in the right room, right? You can be in the right room. And at the same time, it goes back to, man, but you have to be a part of the right room, right?
Be in the right room. And this goes back to your earlier comment about being human, right? He asked him, basically, he didn't know Howard Schultz from Adam, technically, because Adam Schultz couldn't get the meeting on his own. It was his friend who worked in the firm who got the meeting for him. So without really knowing too much, and I'm sure the guy knows who he is, obviously, but because the dude got investors or whatever, but they clearly aren't friends. So for him to just take his word that the facts that I've told you about the case are the facts, and I've not left anything out of this story. And on those two things, if Howard Schultz is telling the truth on this publicly recorded interview, on them two things, he marches himself to the office of another Titan and demands that dude stand down on Howard Schultz's word.
On his up right there. On his word. On his word. And as a community, I like what you're saying, because I'm gonna connect this to our inner God, right? The inner voice that we hear, the law of God that is written on our hearts. We're supposed to know that. Sometimes you can get on your own. I think to activate that for a lot of us takes community validation, that that's what you're hearing, that word is what you're hearing. I'm going to take a little shout out. Gracie, I'm recording. I'm almost done. I'm recording. Come back later.
First of all, let me just tell you how when you just shouted out for Gracie, Nisa looked up like, what? Who yelling and why? What we doing?
She's like, what? So, okay, going back to the, if you don't understand and no one has taught you, maybe you don't have practice, or you reach externally for that works best if it's validated. Right. As kids. It can be possible that you are raised by people who don't even hear that voice and obey that voice anyway.
Correct.
Right? Or you might have enough courage to speak that truth, but that's not the truth they hearing or are obedient to.
Right.
But yes, I believe everyone has that voice and believes that it is remarkable, because this is unfortunately not a lot done in our society. And I think the most harmful part of being enslaved and being lied on with these campaigns of how ignorant we've been is that we silence ourselves to that voice and start to believe the other voice.
That is right? True, which is very unfortunate.
I think that's 90% of our issue there, is the other voice has been so magnetized, that external voice, because I'm telling you now, even you saying that this man, first of all, his friend believed him. Took him to his boss. That kind of trust in what his friend was saying. So trust, honoring, acceptance, and validation. That's what we're lacking in. In our community. How many times have I been in a doctor's office and I'm talking about my own body, my own self?
Own self, like you don't know your own self, and somebody is telling you no, that's not the case, gaslighting you about your own self. Yes.
So it's like, if you've had that gaslight, I love that. If you have that gaslighting experience and you get to a point, which is why a lot of women, such as I in the past, have been in abusive relationships, when you internalize all this shit, when you internalize all that, and then you start doubting yourself.
That's the stop.
You said what?
I just need everybody to stop. Just stop.
That disconnect, that programming is something that takes, like, if you've been in that programming for 20, 30 years, and you have hooked yourself up to that externalized gaslighting tank to the point where you would never even ask for help. You wouldn't even tell nobody because you don't think nobody's going to believe you.
Right.
That mess, that's the ultimate tragedy. Right? Because we have a saying in our community, I can do bad all by myself.
That is true.
So half of us ain't even asking for help.
That's correct. That is correct.
Right? In the campaign to get us to doctors, I said get us to healing. But right, because when we speak up, we're not being heard, so we don't have other avenues, or we're not creating our own avenues because we stopped believing ourselves a long time ago. I mean, but I love that story because I'm like, who is that? Who can I be that for? Where is that for me? Right? That's community. Home dude had community.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody to come in and say.
But let's recognize though what type of community it was, because the community that Black people seem to want is this utopian community.
Oh no, no, no,
Right.
no.
We want, again, and I had that again when I talked about my university experience at Xavier. I went into it thinking we was all gonna be singing Kumbaya and all the things, whatever, right? All the things. That's not with, again, he did not know dude.
But somebody in his community did.
But somebody worked there. Friends from college or whatever they were, associates, whatever. I'm pretty sure friend was a strong word, but whatever, they knew each other.
Right.
And that was enough. And that's what I want people, to me, that's the takeaway.
Okay.
That was enough.
Yeah.
That was enough. There was not this high bar, clearance bar that he had to go over. He was not doing the high jump, whatever, at the 10-foot pole, like that. It was a very low bar, basically. And that to me says everything, because we want people, we have this mindset that we need to. I'll give you a perfect example. I advocated for somebody to get a job somewhere, and I was like, hey, this person is great, worked with them in the past, they did fantastic work, they would be a true asset to your organization, you should bring them in. Person took my word for it, brought them in, and that person screwed up the job. They even admit it. They even admit they had lots of stuff going on in their life personally or whatever, and they just couldn't show up the way that they normally would have showed up. And they came to me, and they were like, I'm so sorry. They were like, I had a lot going on in life. I feel bad. I didn't want to reflect bad on you. I was like, let's be clear, because this is the thing I won't carry around. And I think this is that bar that Black people set, right? Like,
you got to be 10 times better. We all represent each
yeah,
other.
I know. Like, if Howard Schultz had failed, Bill Gates Sr. would keep moving on with his life. He'd be like, well, look, I, whatever, right? So, and that's what I told that person. I was like, look, this is not a reflection on me. I didn't lie about anything I said. When I worked with you, you did great work.
Okay. Can I
You
stop you
did
there? Because you just freed me from something. You just freed me. This is very interesting what you're saying. And I have not thought about this since, but I'm thinking you could speak on this. I think I suffered from that. I remember when I moved back, I had left the ex for the first big time. I left the job immediately, right? Abusive situation, came to Texas, and called the job and said, hey, I got to get out of here. I got to go. So they want to know, like, legally, I had to be determined if I could ever be rehired again at the university. And they determined so, right? And, work with me beautifully. Well, I needed a job when I got here after I got settled after 6 weeks. And I asked my friend that I work with, I was no longer at the job we used to work with, right? I was at a different job at that time, but I asked her for reference for this new job for the type of work I used to do with her.
Yeah.
And I remember her, and we were friends. We were like real friends. And I remember her saying that she was shocked and disappointed in how I left, even though it wasn't even at that job, it was a different job. And she wasn't sure that she could give me the recommendation because of how it would reflect on her.
Oh yeah, no. So yeah, no. So if I recommend you for some work that you did that was shoddy, that's different. If I'm just like, hey, Rebecca did great work, even though I know Rebecca sucked at her job, and then you go somewhere else and you suck, that's a reflection on me at that point, because I just lied to you about Rebecca's work, knowing full and goddamn well Rebecca didn't do nothing great. But that's what I'm saying. In this case, I didn't lie about anything. I did not embellish anything. This person, when I worked with them and they worked for me, did fantastic work. Absolutely fantastic. For whatever reason, whether they just tired and they like, look, I can't show up, or they had personal things, or they got in there and they didn't like it. Whatever the reason is, they got into the next role, that other role, and did not show up. They acknowledged they didn't show up. People released them. And that's nothing to, I don't need an apology. So that at that moment in time, that's your record. That's your record at that moment. And I'm not a person who suffers secondhand embarrassment or none of that. Like whatever you do, that's your bit. Like that is your, and like, so I've never had that. Like I even remember my mom telling me stuff like, you know, when you go out into the world, you're gonna be a reflection of us. I'm like, I'm not no goddamn reflection of you. I'm a reflection of me.
I think that's where you're so different, because like that group think.
I don't care what other arsenals in the whole wide world of arsenal and do. That ain't got nothing to do with me.
I think that you have not suffered, which is brilliant, right? From not that group think, or that type, whatever part of that curse is when slavery would have won. If one Henry got wrong, we all gonna get whipped, right? He tried to run away, so we all get whipped.
Yet you wouldn't at that point, you would never recommend anybody ever, because I cannot be a predictor of what your future is. Right. I can't predict your future, just like I can't predict mine. So all I can do is say, this was my experience. Just like I go to a restaurant, there's been plenty of restaurants I didn't gone to before that I liked, recommended it. Maybe the chef had a bad day, maybe served, I don't know, but people came back to me and was like, yeah, it wasn't really that great. Okay, that ain't on me. That's fine. When I went, it was great.
I think you have a very healthy sense of self-confidence. And I say that in all ways because as a community, I think that is where we suffer. I think it's the same thing in which keeps us from allowing others to succeed, yes, or wanting to help each other out, like all those syndromes of our community.
Because we set the bar up here. Again, Bill Gates Sr. Now, granted, he said what he said. Howard Schultz did what he did. We got Starbucks. Okay, great. But if Starbucks had failed, do you really think Bill Gates Sr. would have lost sleep? That boy is going on. He didn't know Howard Schultz really before then. He went over there, said what he said. It wouldn't have mattered no way. And then he kept living his little life.
But we hold
we just like, if I like now again, I'm not gonna recommend nobody I know who's got trash. Like if you garbage, you garbage. If your stuff garbage, your stuff garbage. I'm not recommending that.
And I'm pretty sure you would have told them that.
I would have. Like, last time I saw that was not good. And let me tell you, so enter with caution. But if what you delivered was great, and it for me is fascinating because we'll say that something is great, and then when somebody says, can you get, like you just said, can you give me a recommendation, and they're like, well, no, then you go home, then what are we having this conversation? So it's very interesting. And the other thing, and I'm gonna tell you this, and this goes back to my little Black people and what we do. So I've had the privilege of working with a very diverse group of people, with not necessarily I've not had very many like minority leaders, unless you count women in that. But interestingly enough, like if you looked at my LinkedIn page, the vast majority of my recommendations are from white people. Have I asked Black people and other minorities to write a recommendation while they running their mouth talking about how great I am? I have. Have they? No.
Maybe, okay, let me stop. I was gonna say maybe
that's trauma. No, you just
no, I was gonna say maybe that's Oprah. Maybe that's
garbage. It's garbage. It's garbage and garbage. Oh, I'm like, so like what, like that to me is the interesting thing. And there was this whole thing on like, TikTok has these questions that they be asking people, like, would you rather, if you were in the woods, would you rather see a white man or a bear? Or if you, would you rather work for a white man or a white woman? Like all these things. And there's a lot of truth to all of those things. And so, like, I am fascinated by how Black people will not do the most basic, like, I think what Bill Gates Sr. did was above and beyond, because he could have just wrote a letter. He could have been like, that dude went to that dude's office and like, you gonna look at my face when I say this to you.
LBJ.
That's correct. But I'm like, picking up a phone, like people have asked me before, like, can you connect me to somebody? I'm like, I don't care, unless you're crazy. Now, if I know you'd be crazy, and I'm gonna tell you, no, I'm not doing it because you're crazy and I'm not participating. But if you're not, I'm like, what harm is it in me making a connection for you? Like, you're gonna do the legwork, because if I got to do the legwork, I'm sending you a bill. But if you do the legwork, I don't care. So have all the connect, like, I don't care. And there are people who are just like, I'm not doing it. I'm like, this is insanity. Y'all are crazy. Why do you make life so hard?
Wow.
And yet here we are.
Wow. It's so many things. Our complexes. And the other thing that I thought of when I heard a woman say, when it came to that bear metaphor thing, she said she'd rather be attacked by a bear because then they would believe me.
Yep. There's a lot of truth to that.
Right?
There's a whole lot of truth.
Not being believed. And I think what else I pulled out of that was a need for what we were taught, right, in our community, was you have to be 10 times better. I think definitely with me, I will spend a lot of time in the research phase. I wouldn't call it perfectionism, but right, preparing and preparing and preparing and preparing and preparing. And it's like, and I love your model. Like, it's just so much simpler, right? When you're doing this, like the fact that dude said this is happening, someone believed him and got results, right? I have this, someone believed. And I think part of it is a lot of us are used to things being so complicated, because it has been so complicated, because we expect not to be believed. So we have a bio source of all this stuff,
Yeah.
Self-sabotage can be real. So yeah, I think that's a problem if you're not used to being believed, therefore you're believing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's so much, but at the end of the day, we are accountable for us. So even if we're in that space, that interview let me know, well, there are spaces like that does exist. Get to that space or create the space yourself, but that there is room for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned about complication. So I've said this to people before, like especially people that I mentor and stuff like that. I'm not here for the complication. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm not. Like, it's people who, like, there are like affirmations out there around things being complicated, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I love a good challenge, or I definitely love a good challenge. But complicated, no.
Okay, can you break that down a little bit? Break that down.
Like, if something is hard, like I talk to people all the time, they'd be like, marriage is hard. I'm like, I don't know what marriage you in, but if this get hard, I'm out. Like, I'm not participating.
I love that about you, because I'm not from that universe, but I'm trying to get there.
I'm not doing hard stuff. Challenging, yes, because I always want it's almost like if you think about like how you go when you go to the gym, right? And if you haven't been to the gym in a minute, or if you've been to the gym all the time, the next level you go to, like when you move from picking up 5-pound weights to 15-pound weights, right? Like, it's a challenge. Your muscles definitely tell you, hey, this is a different weight than we had before, whatever. But hard means I'm about to damage something. I went from picking up 5-pound weights, I'm gonna try this 100-pound weight. I'm not a part of that life. I'm not doing that life. I'm not doing hard. Challenging, yes. I want to work my brain. I want to solve new. I love solve. I'm a fixer, so I love to fix problems. Bring me a problem, I'll solve some people's biggest challenges. All of that. But hard, I'm not doing it. And when stuff starts to feel hard to me, I take a step back because I'm like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, or we need to do this a different way because this right here, this not it.
I love that. I love that because our community,
Life's hard.
Have normalized hard, have normalized slaving.
Mm-hmm. Well, because everybody is like, God wants you to like I remember my mama playing this song and it always when she played so my mother talking about cleaning on the weekends she would clean and she put on her little bathing suit and she put on her gospel music and she'd be going around the house cleaning the things and I'd be like, why are you in a bathing suit? She's like, I can't be at the beach for real, that I'm gonna be at the beach right here. Okay, well you do your thing, ma'am. So, but she had this song that would say, I'm going up the rough side of the mountain or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I would always ask her, I'm like, why would you want to go up? The Lord said, speak to the mountain and it's going to move. Why are we going up the rough side? I'm going up the rough side of nothing. I'm not, the Lord knows this about his child. I can't help it. Don't know y'all else got this concept, but what I'm not doing is going up the rough side. We're not doing it. I'm not doing it. I don't believe that there's no extra experience I need on the other side of the rough. I don't believe none of that. We either gonna stay to this mountain, move out the way, and I either have enough faith, fortitude, favor, whatever else for it to up and move, or I'm not participating. I'm not going up the rough side, y'all. It's rough. It just told you it's rough. I'm not. On the boat, Peter in the storm, or whoever that was in the storm. And they was hollering and Jesus was asleep. And Jesus was like, if you don't just be like, peace, be still and move on with your life. And then the storm calmed and all the things. I'm not doing hard. That's one thing we can definitely. I'm not doing hard.
Another bestseller.
Hard.
I'm not doing hard.
There is nothing that says I need to do hard. Nothing. Every single, and if you are a person of the Bible, Torah and New Testament, there's nothing in any of them books that indicate that I need to ascribe to hard. Nothing. Even the story of Job, people are like, well, what about Job? The beginning of Job tells you that the reason why Job found himself where he was because of his fear. Fear is not of God. That fear left the opening for Satan to say, you know what? That's who I'm gonna test. And Job said, everything I feared has come to pass. Everybody else was doing just fine. Abraham left his family, became the most richest man. David was doing what he was David. Saul was even hunting David, and David still, like all the things, nothing was hard. I don't want hard. I'm not doing hard. Y'all can have all the hard.
Oh, that one hit me in the gut because I just had this conversation with my sister Sarah over hard. And I was like, what am I doing? I found myself in a psychological spot, in a physically manifested spot. And I said, this is ridiculous. What am I doing? And I couldn't I said, I'm not depressed. It's not anxiety. It's not. And I was, checking in. I was like, what? But I have no idea what I was doing. And I was getting so angry with myself because it was some blatant stuff going on. And I was like, okay, so one of those things was, I applied to, it gets laughable because it's so ridiculous, right? If you ignore stuff, it like hits you in the head. So I applied to this district and I get an email back saying, we can't hire you because of a warrant. I had a warrant? A warrant? So I'm like, what? So I see 3 weeks after I gave birth, so this is almost 7 years old, there was a ticket. And I was like, what? So I called and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I don't remember anything in the mail. And she was like, well, ma'am, it was because of Harvey.
Wait, why people? Okay, why are we issuing warrants for the people with
She
Harvey
was
stuff?
like, it was like Harvey time. And I was like, I'm not even sure I was even driving my car. This was 3 weeks after I gave birth. I'm pretty sure I wasn't. She was like, whatever the case was, this was Harvey, and people moved, and I did move. I ended up moving like 3 weeks later. People moved, and she said there was actually two tickets. She was like, one was dismissed, but they kept the one for the lamp being out in the back. And she was like, we didn't actually get to the docket until 2019. I was like, what? I said, I never received a call or anything in the mail. She was like, well, if you moved, here we are, fast forward, right? Y'all show up in 2024.
Right.
So I said, well, what are my options? And so I'm going to court, no side court,
No, no.
no side court to see if they can I don't know, help me out and show them the letter from the job. So I say that because I was like, I figured out that every 3.5 years, there is something that I do to destabilize myself.
Mm.
And my children are all 3.5 years apart, like to the date. And I had to really sit and pray and think, what goes on every 3.5 years? And I'm going back and I'm going back and I'm going back. And I called Mr. Jackson. I call him my second daddy. And I'm talking to him through it. And he was like, well, what happened at 3.5? I said, 3.5? He's like, 3.5. Now, this is environment that I have completely internalized. So I think this is probably a high possibility knowing who I am. But I remember at 3.5 was this one of my biggest memories of 3.5. My father went into a psychosis. Okay. Today we would have called it being bipolar, but he was 32, really young guy. He was like one of those fun dads, at least to me, right? Poor mom, she was probably suffering, but he was one of those fun guys. And I remember him having an episode, and what that looked like, I'll say for people who might need to know this, what it looked like was that he didn't have a sense of responsibility. Like he couldn't get himself to go to work. And I think he was like laying around in bed. And I remember coming back from church one Sunday, and my dad, it was raining, and my dad had on his really thin house coat and underwear and tank top and slippers. And he had run himself from the convenience store with a because he wanted to get one of those little pecan pies, tiny. But it was rain. And I remember at 3.5 looking at my dad like, you're acting like a little kid, right? And that's the first time I remember like, something's wrong. Something's wrong with him. And I say that because he never recovered. Like the dad that I have now is a shell of whatever he was at 32. Hence us not having a relationship and all this other stuff. But I say that because my Mr. Jackson, he said, you know what? He said, this may be for you. Because there were a lot of incidents at 3.5 back in the day where it was, I did something wrong and they said, you're gonna get a whooping. You just pick which one you want to get the whooping from. So he said that may have been your way for you taking control and saying, if I'm going to experience something, I'm going to create it myself and I'm going to deal with it myself. And he said, maybe subconsciously every 3.5 years, you recreate something, but it's yours and you control it and you control how you get that whooping. Whatever the case is I was like, because it was too crazy. It was too crazy. I couldn't put my finger on it. And so I say that to say that I just never know how whatever agreements or things that we implanted in ourselves as kid revisits itself until it's healed. Because I was literally sitting down like, I'm really competent. I know I am. But this part feels uncontrollable.
Right.
But now that I'm aware of it, I literally have my daily calendar, every night journal. Like, am I contributing to this cyclone? Right? Monthly. Like, now I'm really trying to be on top of where I'm going with myself, because the subconscious is a destroyer if we don't know it's there.
That's right.
And I honestly think that, I know Nation of Islam does this with Scientology. That's a whole nother issue right there. But understanding what that is silencing that voice and making us recreate situations is the key for us. Because if I don't believe myself and if I don't hear myself, it doesn't really matter. I'll get something great and destroy it. Right? I'll recreate it. So I love that about the Bill Gates thing, because the piece was the minimalization of what he had to do. He just had, well, he was in community. It was a powerful community. And he spoke his truth. And someone had believed him and took action.
That's correct. That's correct. And this was not the community. And this is the thing. I don't know who I was saying this to. Might have been you, maybe, about why I don't do the sessions like I used to do before. And community is not brunch and a vision board. I just want everybody, like, I need, like, that. I guarantee you, Howard Schultz and Bill Gates Sr. were not at brunching on Brunch with the Girls, power brunch and heels, all like that. That is, and that's why I need, like, that's not community, or maybe it's a form of community, right? But that was not the threshold for Bill Gates Sr. to help Howard Schultz. How many times he had been to Brunch and Heels with him? Or I don't know if that's somebody's brand, so I apologize if that's your brand.
Because that would be a transaction.
That would be a transaction. That would be a transaction.
Because that would just be
very transactional. Correct.
But this wasn't based on that. Okay. So then what was it? Okay, then help me with this then. Because you bring up a point I've never heard of. So community basically isn't church membership. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Correct. That's correct.
So please define for me, then what was that?
I don't know if I have a definition for it. So, again, I'm going to tell you, but the essence, like, the reason why people, so I have an uncle who went to get 2 degrees from MIT and a master's from Harvard. Wow. And when I asked him about his decision on Harvard, because I was just like, I mean, did we really need Harvard? You got two degrees from MIT. I feel like that was more than ample. We could have just stopped right there. And the whole thing is, you don't go to Harvard. Like, Harvard isn't the best school ever. Like, plenty of people who go there will tell you it's not. But the connections, and it's not connections that you need to pick up the phone. Again, it's not connection. We got a brunch every Sunday, once a month. But that's not the connectivity. It is the notion that we have this thing, in this case, it's a school that we all went to, and that school has that experience of that school is weighted for our relationship. There's a weightedness to that experience that we share for this relationship. Therefore, I can pick up the phone and call another Harvard alum and say, hey, so-and-so, this other Harvard dude gave me this dude who gave me this dude who, in all the stars and galaxy alignment of cross intersections and all the things, I'm now at you, and they told me you might be able to help with this. Or someone does it on your behalf. So the community is not about, that's what I'm like, we keep thinking community is like in your face all the time. And if you're not in my face, then you're not a part of the community. Or if I don't live, like, this notion of community is conceptual. Like, we need to conceptualize community instead of trying to make it textural. Like, it's not necessarily tactile. It's not about going to brunch every quarter with these 20 chicks or 20 dudes or whatever. And because y'all are all entrepreneurs, somehow that's supposed to make us a community. That's in essence what fraternities and sororities were supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be able to pick up a phone, call your Delta sister or your Kappa brother or whatever, right? Like, that was the whole idea behind those. Now, I don't know how strong those are, but there's strength to, like, the A&Ms, and like, you look at TCU, like, I'm here in Dallas right now, and you look at the strength behind the TCU alumni network. It's insane. Like, people's children upon children upon children, they go there, they be getting jobs and whatever. Like, it's strong.
Okay. Now I see what you're saying. Okay, that
And
makes
I don't even have to know you. I just need to know that you had that experience.
That is so deep. So we don't know if this Schultz guy, right, was in a community like that. Maybe he was an alum. Maybe he was
Correct.
Okay.
Because the way Howard Schultz kind of talked about it, if you watch the clip, he talks about, he mentions Bill Gates Jr. a smidgen. He was like, yeah, because at this time, Bill Gates Jr. hadn't made money. He was working out of a garage at the time. So I can't help but wonder what those circles were circling at the time, right? That, and again, his friend or previous roommate or whatever they were by association, he was on the phone with him telling him his experience. So they had some level of connectivity, because he wasn't calling him to try to get legal counseling and support. He was just telling him about what happened to him today. That dude had the job at the firm and said, I'm going to make you an appointment to see my boss, who happened to be Bill Gates Sr.
Wow.
So,
that's so deep.
So again, right, it's not about being in somebody's face all the goddamn time. It's not about us needing to live in the same apartment complex or be in the same, like, that is not what it is about. And I'm not saying you can't have community like that, where you got a community garden, if that's what y'all want to do, and you all want to raise your food together, and that's your business.
You're talking about the actual, like, system. I think now I truly
understand. About the system.
You're talking about, when we talk about the system, we're talking about a community that gives favor based on you existing as part of this network, and it's powerful, like white privilege. I show up and I have this inherent power.
That's correct.
I see what you're saying. Okay, Priscilla, I apologize, because I understand, right? She was trying to put me in these rooms. Like, I really didn't, we were out here in Memorial as kids, right? And there were all kind of experiences with that, but I understand that her intention was, I don't want you to be afraid of accessing these rooms. These are powerful rooms, and I want you to be a part and learn how to communicate in these spaces, right? And she knew she was limited, but she was like, but if I raise you here, you'll be able to walk in these rooms. That is so fascinating.
Right.
Oh, that is so fascinating.
Right. Because, and I remember there was this question on Instagram or whatever about whether you would want to have a dinner with Jay-Z, or would you rather $250,000 or $500,000 or something like that. And people were like, look, I love Jay-Z, but give me the money, da, 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 da. And then there were other people who were like, oh, no, I'd rather be in a room with Jay-Z. And this is the thing that I think that people don't get about community, right? If you have the dinner with Jay-Z, potentially, because if you get the $500,000, but you don't have any connections, and you don't know the information, and you don't have the tax, you don't understand the tax code, and that money is gone tomorrow.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes.
But the connection to Jay-Z, the ability to call him potentially and say, look, I got this problem. You got, these people, do you have any way can you help me solve? Can you, whatever, right? That's a different That's community, right? That corporate community, not communalism.
Ah, yes. Ah, so deep. Reminds me of Hedwig Village, right? The city within the
Yep.
city, Bel Air, the city within the city. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like that is a connection that if forged correctly, you go to dinner with Jay-Z, that will dwarf that $250,000 forever and ever in perpetuity if you manage to make him a connection.
Mm. Wow.
Because I also, you think about like all these people, so you like there's this
Who you know, right? Who you know.
there's yes, it is a lot about who you know, and who will show up for you. Um, there's this show that goes around asking people how they made that, like, have you ever been broke? How'd you make your first million? When did you make it? All this stuff. And a lot of the people on there, then there are some that are like influencer kind of stuff, but a lot when he talking to these old white dudes who like talking about most money I made in a year was $750 million and all this other mess. Them dudes will tell you they talk about real estate. They'll be like, I started in real estate, whatever, right? But the interesting thing about real estate is it's not just about owning the real estate, right? Like case in point, I will tell you, Martin and I went to buy this piece. There was this beautiful like Asian-esque armoire that somebody had for sale. And they lived over in the Montrose area. And so we went at like this 4-story townhome or something. And we're in their little elevator going up to see the piece. And the elevator stopped on either the second or third floor. I can't remember, one of the two floors. But the floor was incomplete. Like it didn't have any sheetrock on it. It was just an open floor. And we got off there because that's where the stuff was being stored. And I was like, this is interesting. I was like, are y'all in the middle of renovating? Like, what's happening? And the woman said, oh, no. Like, we keep this floor unrenovated because we don't pay taxes on the whatever and the real estate. And like, she went into this whole real estate bleh, around the decision to not complete this floor. And I thought Martin and I left there and I was like, who told her that? Like, who told this couple that if you don't complete this, then you get some great significant reduction? As practically she living in this 4-story fantastic home, practically tax-free, all because she did not complete one floor.
Wow.
Who told her that, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not just about, let me go get this $250,000 because I'm not going to eat dinner with Jay-Z. I'm going to whatever. And it's not just about, let me go sit in this room full of entrepreneurs who are sitting here with this person who is charging us because we show up every quarter for brunch and they whatever like that. Like, it's people who have tribal knowledge of stuff. And like, you need that as a part of your, if that's on your journey, man, you need that. And you can't really get it any other way.
Mind blown. Look at like, I got so much to I got so much to do.
I was floored when she told me that. I was like, now what do I need to know about my own house? I was like, forget, I don't need to be in real estate, but can I just not pay no taxes or limited taxes on my own house?
Wow. No, but you were, man, it's all I realized that when I went to, because they were like, go to college, go to college, go to college. That's all I heard. And I hard, right? I did this hard thing, and hard because I didn't want to be there, but I was told to be there and I'm just gonna listen. But I did this hard thing, and when I graduated, it wasn't until I graduated that I realized I didn't do anything but go to college. I didn't network. I just did the work, got the GPA, and I realized that I didn't have the wisdom, right, that was the point of college.
That was the point of college.
To create the network. And that's the point of going to one of those really, really good, now U of H is rated high, wasn't then.
Right.
But that was the point in going to the Harvards versus the USCs versus was the network.
Network.
Was the network. So what is a good step for us? Because I love what you're saying, because that is how we have survived, is by being communal.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe at one point there was a network when we were all communal. But what you're saying is resonating 1000%. Now I get this now. If I have right, and you hear bits of this on destructive and knowledgeable ways on social media that you so pointed out. But is there, without me getting hazed, without me paying a whole lot of money, where do these networks exist for our community?
So I don't know if there's community admission. It's not. No, there's community admission. And I'm open to being corrected. I don't know if there's
maybe it's a chamber of commerce, the Black Chamber of Commerce. I don't know. She was like, wow.
There might be an individual, right? Remember, Howard Schultz did not go to
an event or
an event, right? He did not go to, and I can tell you, this is every Titan, every ultra rich person, the handful of them that I know whose secrets, whatever, they were not trying to go to the Greater Houston Business Partnership. That they weren't trying to go to the monthly meeting. That was not right. Most of the stuff came out of college connections for a lot of people, right? Like universities that they attended and things like that. But some of it comes out of just some of the philanthropy work, right? Being a part of, participating in some of the, like you think about like the Houston Ballet. Now, granted, if it costs you 100 G's to get on the board of the Houston Ballet, then you're probably not going to be on the board. But that doesn't mean that like you can't help the Houston Ballet and start to, right? Like you need to also like figure out what places you need to be in that where you can start to build connections, just connections, right? Just connections. Because that's, again, it's not, to me, it's not about communalness.
That's so fascinating. Because there is the communal, like with our community, there is a need to have community because of disease, right? We need the basics, right? You need somebody to help you in everyday life and be a part of community. And then you also need to be part of a network. Oh, it sounds like another, it's a lot.
People, but it's the same thing even if you work in like corporate America. Like people, for those individuals who want to be in corporate America and want to move themselves up in corporate America, whether you stay in the same company or you move to another company or whatever the case may be, people who have mentors and sponsors within their company do way better, because those are the people, that's correct, because your senior director or your VP of whatever happens to be your sponsor or mentor or whatever. They are in the room, and when they talk about the roles that are never posted, your name is in the conversation.
Yeah,
you're getting the information you need in order to be groomed and seen. They are handing you projects that you can show your ability to do certain things. So you came into the company, some little junior PM doing whatever, and then eventually somebody says, you know what? We're building this $4 billion asset. this new asset is $4 billion. We need a PM who's going to manage the infrastructure that we have $1 billion infrastructure that we need for this asset. You get to manage $1 billion. Or 400 million, or whatever the case may be, right? That's important. Like you get there, right, through, yes, you have to do the work and show the work. Again, Howard Schultz succeeded by whatever means necessary. Jeff Bezos has succeeded by whatever means necessary, right? But so you have to do the work once you get the thing. But to get into the position, and this is the thing I don't think people understand. Now, for white boys, it might be a little different because they be getting stuff that they are completely incompetent for. And you'd be like, they gave you this. And I don't really know because I don't understand what's happening. You are just burning up money right now. But they get, the reason why they are there is because somebody said, give Timmy an opportunity. Let's see what Timmy can do. Timmy ain't shown no ability to do nothing that they didn't tap Timmy to do. But they're willing to let Timmy, they're willing to take a risk on Timmy. So
you put it like that, yeah, we understand collectively that yes, we've seen that power dynamic all of our lives.
But we don't like, because I'm that person, right? Like I'm the person who I am an introvert and I don't really want to have conversations with people. I don't want to mentor. I don't want to sponsor. I don't want to talk to nobody. Please just leave me alone. I'm just going to do this work and mind my business. Somehow that's worked. I don't know how, because it goes against the grain.
I was about to say, how is that work? But I think your life is just, that's your plan. You gotta
I know what the Lord is doing. And I don't ask no questions. I just be like, okay. But that goes against the grain of everything else. So whether I wanted it or not, people clearly put my name into rooms because I've not gotten work from any friends, right? Like no matter where my friends are at in other organizations, friends have not put my name in rooms.
Okay. So your work has shown itself.
My work has shown itself, and strangers who have been the recipient of that work have said, you should do this project, or hey, we have this, do you have 5 more people just like you? Bring them here. Let's do this, right? So somebody is saying my name in rooms, thank the Lord. But if you're trying to expedite that process, then you need to connect to people who are in those rooms. So even if you're an entrepreneur, and again, maybe you're going, I'm not going to say until you don't go to the brunch every quarter with the brunch and chicks for entrepreneurs and whatever. I'm not going to tell you, do whatever you want to do. But in that, being surrounded by other entrepreneurs is great, right? You can bounce ideas and all the things, but who's in the room? Who is having the conversation in the RFP deal, the request for proposal? Who is in that room that's going to bring your business in with it? Who has the connection to the CEO, CTO, CIO, CFO, CHRO, CMO, CCCSO? Who has those audiences that's going to say, oh yeah, we do mergers and acquisitions, and yeah, we helped y'all do that. We don't really do this, but let me tell you about this firm over here. Let me tell you about this person over here. They can help you do this thing. That's not really in our wheelhouse. We're going to keep doing this body of work, but let me introduce you to so-and-so, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CFO, whatever, right? Who's doing that? Because that's how your business grows. That's how you...
And I like that we learned that it's not necessarily, well, we learned that it's not necessarily, of course, you don't want to get sued for litigation for, your services being jacked up. But that angst about, and maybe this is just a me issue, the when you have a bunch of products, well, is mine good? I love the fact that the whole Bill Gates conversation was just about taking this dude on his word and knowing somebody powerful.
Correct.
Right. Johnson & Johnson is not around because it's the best product. We know it's not. Right. We know they're far better.
Yeah, a lot better. A lot better. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, Bill Gates Sr. didn't know Howard Schultz was going to be what he became. Right? He did not know that Starbucks was going to dominate the market of coffee, suck up all the 90% market share, I would argue, of coffee for people with and without disposable income, because people be broken on their last cent buying a $7 coffee. Right?
Oh, apparently, I'm not a coffee connoisseur. 7-Eleven tastes just fine to me.
But he didn't know that was gonna happen, right? But wow. And but he was like, stand down. This deal is his. Don't mess with that.
Wow. Powerful rooms and powerful people. And allowing God to guide us in those rooms, and being confident enough to ask for help. And network, and not being so I can do all this by myself, which is our enemy, right?
Yes.
So wow, that's so deep. That is so deep. That's going to, we're gonna have to have several conversations about that.
Talk 5 seconds on guns, but there you have it.
Because guns.
It's gonna happen, and we'll have there will be another conversation.
It's important, but it has everything to do, I think, with these rooms. The reason why any of this is happening is because there's somebody powerful somewhere that is making decisions that's affecting all of us. And I'm not even talking about guns. I'm not against guns at all. But just to say it briefly, there's always a track record, and they knew that boy and his AR-15s were an issue.
Right.
Right. And for whatever reason, somebody didn't go after that family. They said May of 2023, when they thought he was going to shoot everybody up. Right. Somebody powerful, some police chief, whatever, didn't because if it was Jamal, okay.
And that is the power of connection, not community, right? The power of connection, not because that's white privilege is connection. Ain't got nothing to do with community. White people don't know community. They don't have no community. You got Irish and Scottish and English, and like there's not community in what there is connectivity.
There is connect, like the broadband.
It's connectivity, right? So I remember there was a story about a judge's daughter who got into a DUI case in Houston. This was several years ago. That girl never saw a jail cell a day in her life. Why? Because her daddy was a judge. I'm sure he called in a favor at the district attorney's office and was like, look, don't mess up Sarah Beth or whatever her name is. She got a good future in front of her and all this other mess.
It's the connectivity. I love that. Yeah, it's the network.
And I mean, I can tell you, like, I remember our car got broken in at a park, and one of the senior district attorney people in Harris County, I was talking to her husband, as we happened to be, and he was like, you should talk to my wife. And I was like, yeah, no, I know her, and we'll whatever. But I was like, no, I'm not too concerned. And when I tell you, she found out about it, she was like, we are going to be all over. And I was like, it's a break-in in a car. It's going to be fine. It was a rental car. We fixed the window, brought it back to the thing. My purse is gone. My product will never come back. It's going to be fine. She was like, no, we're trying to make the city safer, and all the things, right? Again, connectivity, nothing to do with communalism.
Because you ain't having brunch with her every Sunday.
Her husband, I would see here and there and about and all that. And I just happened to be telling the story about how the car got broken into at a park, and I was appalled. And they went in on it.
Wow. Okay. That's connectivity. Oh, man. Okay. So getting connected. First to self and then network.
Yep. That's correct. That is correct. And okay. I know for us, and lastly, I know for us, I just want to be clear about this, Black people specifically. And again, the Lord knows, the Most High knows that I love him dearly. Period. Just put a period right there. I'm going to tell you that Bill Gates Sr. and Howard Schultz and Jeff Bezos and everybody else could care less about the Most High. So for everybody who was like, well, I need to be connected into God. And I'm not saying for you not to be connected into God. I'm not telling you not to be connected, but I just want you to know that the powers of the universe get exercised with and without, because they are the laws of the universe.
That's a very thank you for clarifying, because it rains and blesses on the just and unjust.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, because we don't need to go into, well, I did this and so I can't get this, and
Right.
it
If you
is
plug into the Lord, yes, plug into the Lord and plug into all those other over yonders, yes.
Okay. Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. Okay, because that's how they're getting stuff done.
That is how they are getting stuff done. They could care less about the Most High. They're like, look, there's this universal principle, and if I do X, this is going to yield itself as Y. So let's move forward. And then we over here, one, going up the rough side of the mountain, and two, acting like.
She said, first, we going up the rough side when they have a whole jet stream.
Like, we gonna fly over the mountain. We not even
flying over the
mountain. Yeah, so I'm not saying don't be connected into your power source of your creator, but I am saying that the laws of the universe work for everybody.
And through everybody, because I sure am going to accept that power, whether you believe in God or not.
You are correct.
Right? I'm not asking a heart surgeon, wait, are you saved? No, we getting the surgery.
I'm not asking you if you are born again or none of that. If you are the best surgeon, you are the best surgeon, and the Lord will guide your hands, because I'm at the table. So let's move forward. I don't need to know nothing about where you go on Sundays and Saturdays. Okay.
Oh my gosh. So what is the, okay, you got so what is the ultimate, because you've wrecked will help reframe some of my Black Americanisms, right? Of the framework of how I think a lot of us have moved.
Yeah.
And where we're putting our energy. So even if we do have a Black Wall Street, we still need more than that.
We need more than that.
Wow. And that's what you were saying, when nation states cover for their people. So if the Chinese immigrants here have an issue, China's still right there.
Coming up. China is going to be right there, front and center. That is correct.
Okay. And that's still their network. So, okay. Well, I'm like, I need a list of people who be cutting for Black folks like that, because they here, right?
Like I said, my LinkedIn recommendations are predominantly white people.
Well, I'm saying they could be white allies.
They could be white allies. They could
be white allies. And I say this because a lot of times what they don't show in the media, right? What they do not show in the media is they show the racism and the schism, but they don't show the power players who have assisted us in getting us to where we are.
Because that's the part I don't think people understand. You can't get your own self out of the bondage. You have to have a person who is free and seen to then make the case for you. Israel was not set free because Moses stood up there and was like, you free. They were free because of everything that Pharaoh went through. And then Pharaoh was like, fine, leave, please. Just get up out of here, leave. So for every seat at every table that you're trying to get access to, you don't get it without the person who already has the table and the seats to say, come on in. So this notion that you're going to have Black freedom and ain't going to be no white people involved, I don't know how that's going to happen. I mean, if it can, I'm fascinated and I'm here for the lesson. But like, it's women who are like, it's no women in corporate America. Men, well, who gonna give you the seat? You can't just go and take it. That's not how it works. I mean, you could. That's violent, and there's probably gonna be other repercussions. But You need a man who is at that, who has his board to say, you know, this board is pretty homogenous. It ain't nothing but white men sitting around this table. We need somebody who look different. If they never say that, it will never happen.
Well, yeah. Then I understand how Martin and Malcolm ended up in the same
place. Different
same
route,
place.
but same place.
Yeah. They were like, we got to open this up. It can't just be.
Not unless you're about to make your own nation state, which is fine too. And that is an approach. But if you're trying to be a part of somebody else's system instead, you need the system to let you in. And the owners of the system and the creators of the system, like everything else, are the ones who will let you in. Which is also why they can take it from you, which is a whole different.
She was like, and just in case you try to get too much hope,
in case you had a little bit of hope, let me just give the other side of that. He who giveth can take it away. Okay.
Oh, but it goes back to the most powerful thing that I'm going to take away from this is when you talked about Job, because I don't think I've really heard that as a full-grown adult. And you're like, remember that his fear allowed all of this to enter in.
All of that.
Right. So the fear, that's all I was talking about that story. The fear, and I know we need to wrap this up, the fear that I was talking to my sister about is I said, even though I've had this with my dad, this with this man I picked, this with, I said, I was fighting them, but what I was really fighting against was my fear. Mm-hmm. It was the constant between all of these experiences from childhood was a bunch of fear. Mm-hmm. And I kept allowing fear to be my blanket, mm-hmm. right? To be my blanket, to be my comfort, and to not live in a state of fear, because fear it feels so dense for me.
Right.
To not feel that density caused a bit more fear.
Correct.
Who am I without fear?
Right.
Right. So I can see how maybe even that coworker with stuff in their life, you get to a space where you want to get, and then you're like subconsciously pulling yourself back down to your comfort level.
Right.
No.
Right.
So thank you for that. Dump fear. Or as you dump fear, don't let that stop you from connecting to this powerful network.
That is correct. Okay. That is correct.
Because it's there. Whether you're fearful or not, it's there.
It's there, and somebody taking advantage.
And somebody taking advantage. That's like with all they stuff, they like Clinton with all his stuff.
What?
In the White House, he was still taking advantage of it.
Correct.
And he was still blessing.
That is correct.
Okay, let's get our blessings on like the Clintons.
Let's be blessed.
Blessings on blessings.
Let's be blessed like the Clintons.
Wow. Indestructible. You want to talk about some indestructible people. Good Lord.
They in the right rooms.
Indestructible, yes. That is what the right room will give you. It will give you it'll give you some armor.
Some armor. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll wrap this up, and blessed be and have a wonderful Sabbath.
Hi everyone.